not only This Week in Startups, but I am officially welcoming Ben Gilbert and David Rosenthal's amazing audience, pretty sophisticated audience, I would say, based on the Slack that I'm in at Acquired FM. Yes, this is a collab, a collaboration. All the kids are doing it on the YouTube. David and Ben, welcome back to This Week in Startups. Jake Al, welcome back to Acquired. Is this your first time doing a collab?
Oh, what is this episode like 6, 7 we've done together?
You guys are now in like the rankings of most on the show. I mean, collectively.
7th episode together.
7th episode.
Yeah.
Together,
if you consider the one Acquired with Jason.
Who else is on that leaderboard? Who we have
Wow. Brian Alvey, who was my best friend from high school, who I did Weblogs Inc. with, has been on a lot of times. Nick, who else has been on? There's some people on the News Roundtable, like Molly Wood's been on a couple times. I'd say the News Roundtable. Alex Wilhelm
from TechCrunch has been on 5 times.
More. All right, so some formidable competition.
Yeah, you're up there. I mean,
Andy
basically,
Kiefer Bull's been on 5 times.
Zach? 5 times.
Zach's
been on 6 or 7 times. Yeah, Zach Coleus would be on a lot because he does Ask Jason and Zach. Mm-hmm. Because I find like there's some people I just vibe with, and obviously Ben and David, you're 2 of those folks. If you don't know about Acquired FM, where the hell have you been? Go to acquired.fm and sign up for their elite $100 subscription product in addition to their free. Because do you do?
Yeah,
well,
Jason,
we have big news.
We changed the model a little bit. So we started releasing all LP episodes for free after 2 weeks because we had such awesome guests that we were like, you know what? If people want this information in a way that they're gonna do something interesting with it, 2 weeks is plenty of time. But it's incredible guests. They're saying incredible things. It's a shame to lock it up for just a couple thousand people. So
that's always been the problem I've had with the paywall, and the market for advertising is so vibrant right now, for podcasting at least. You can't say that about blogs or other things. So yeah, I think it's a good decision. We started playing with the, paid concept on Patreon, whatever. And I was just like, this is like an antithetical to my personal brand of founders don't pay. And my audience is founders mostly, some investors and some tech enthusiasts, but mostly founders. And I just, if they've got $100 or no offense, you have a lot of capital allocators. So $100 is just like, whatever, I just want to support the show. I'd rather they put it towards their startup or something. So,
totally.
Well, congratulations on that.
It was much more about it was people who were paying us. Some people were paying for the content. But it was a minority. Most people were paying because they like us, wanted to support the show.
They wanted to support the show.
Be part of the community. We do monthly Zoom calls with our paid LPs. And
that's very cool.
So
we get to hear about their crazy NFT exploits in the last 6 months.
Oh my God. I mean, I don't know when the last time we got together was, but we have not really. When was it?
I think it was right before your Italy trip.
Oh, right before Italy. Okay, so it was August. Thanks. I've lost 20 pounds since then. Thanks.
You look good.
You're still looking good. You're seriously looking good.
You know what happened was David and I were talking, and I don't know if you remember this All In where somebody had a picture of us on the golf course in the middle of the pandemic in Cabo because we had done this David had basically gone AWOL, and it was kind of like I don't know, you guys ever watch Apocalypse Now, like Colonel Kurtz goes into the woods and he goes kind of crazy. So David Sachs is missing. And so people are like, hey, David's kind of lost it in the middle of the pandemic. He just went to Cabo. Can you go retrieve him? And I'm like, okay. So it's middle of the pandemic. I fly down private to Cabo. I find him in Cabo and he's literally, he's kind of I don't know about this pandemic. Is this the end of the world? He's kind of, on edge or whatever.
He's like Colonel Kurtz.
He's basically gone Colonel Kurtz.
You're going into the heart of darkness.
I'm like, you can't live this way. You got funds, you got family, you got friends, you got the poker group. You got to come home. David, you got to come back to the Bay. You can't stay in Cabo for the whole pandemic. So I brought him home. But anyway, there was a picture of the 2 of us on the golf course. And I'm over 200 pounds. He's pushing whatever. And we started doing All In together. And then, of course, the fat jokes, we just fat shame each other incessantly at the poker game. But, You can't do that anymore, can you, David? You're not allowed to fat shame.
I have the picture ready to pull up if you want to see it.
I mean, no, I don't want to see it.
Well, I think
don't,
it's okay if
but
you do it yourself. Oh,
I mean,
wow.
There we are. I mean, there are.
Well, I mean, you're kind of leaning backwards.
Well, we know how to. We're sucking it in there. We're sucking it in. We're working the angles. I'm all in black. He made the terrible maneuver of putting all white on, and he's like, "Why are you wearing all black on the golf course in Cobb?" I'm
slimming.
Like, slimming, exactly. Why do I wear black all the time? It's slimming. So
I love that we're looking at it through a like screenshot of a Zoom background while Sax is talking over it. It's a very like 2020 version of this.
It's peak
photo.
Pandemic. Yeah, that's a peak pandemic approach there, because you can see the aliasing around the thing is just terrible. That's when Zoom just started that feature.
Yeah.
So we look really fat, and so we were fat shaming each other. Then all of a sudden, I notice he's getting thinner, and he's talking about his weight loss. So I'm like, oh god. Anyway, I'm 176 this week, every single day.
Congratulations.
What's your secret? Trainer, Peloton?
I stopped working out actually. And because what I found was in the research, if you're working out and you have a serious amount of weight to lose, which I did, I was 198 or 199 was my peak this year. I'm 176 now. So I've lost over 20 pounds this year. When you're that fat and overweight, I'm sorry, obese, whatever, if I'm triggering people, but I consider myself a fat bastard.
You felt you were not happy with where you were.
I was, if I'm being totally candid, Ben and David, I was very disappointed in myself that I could be so successful at anything I tried, with the exception of weight loss. And it was like embarrassing to me and frustrating to me because I would lose 10 pounds, 15 pounds, and then 10 pounds, gain it back, 10 pounds, gain it back for 10 years. And it's just basically, I was a marathon runner who stopped running marathons. And so my metabolism, you get older, and then I kind of forgive myself. You gain a pound or two a year. That's not a lot. And you do it for 20 years, you're going to be overweight. So that's exactly what happened to me. Anyway, I just went down to 1.5 meals a day. That's it. It's just literal starvation.
It's not fun, but thermodynamics, are a fact of the universe. And there's some quote. I lost a bunch of weight when I was in college, and I remember some quote.
Were you fat?
I lost 40 pounds my senior year of college.
You were
and
fat.
I've been about the same. Yeah, probably. I mean, depends on definition, but I wasn't happy with how I was.
I mean, you were definitely in the obese category, which is 30 BMI or more, plus
thanks,
30,
Jason.
40
Appreciate
pounds.
that.
I mean, no, listen, I was obese too. You get the sense that David was never.
But there's like those
when
phrases
I was a little
like
kid. Not since
David actually played football in college.
Wide
That's
receiver?
a long story that we don't have time for now.
Okay.
Let's do that on the next twist.
Twist.
Collab.
So how did you lose the weight then, Ben?
Very similar. I cut all carbs, but at the end of the day, I think it's kind of it's a calories game.
It's a calories game, and then I've done a bunch of research about this online. It turns out when you have fat on your body, there's all these systems in your body that when you have fat, your body, which is an operating system from that's tens of thousands of years old, just says, oh, there's fat on your body, put more fat on. You got to keep that because it's obviously the winter, so let's keep it on. So your body basically just makes you ravenously hungry to try to keep that fat on. When you get like 10 pounds off, it's like, oh, something's going wrong here, put more fat on. So your body actually actively starts fighting you when you hit that like minus 10 point. So you really have to just break through. And then once you break through, you're good. So David and I both broke through. And it's been great. I mean, he's 168, he told me, and he started at 192 or 94. So we're both on the exact same journey. And we're going to do like a weight loss program and then start selling it for like, whatever.
I'm in. Send me the DVDs.
$149 or something. It's me and him doing aerobics.
Third, fourth leg of the Launch Empire stool. You're launching
the weight loss one.
Okay, right, this is good. So we skip ahead a little bit here, but we wanted this to be like the holiday special episode in review. And one of the questions we had for you, 2021 year in review. This is the perfect tee up. How's your relationship with Saxy Poo? We all over the beef? All good?
Sax and I are like brothers, and Sax is also a leader. And before All In, we could break each other's chops about our position on, let's say, politics. Obviously, I'm left-leaning, he's right-leaning. I'm kind of more of a centrist, and he's becoming a little bit more centrist. So I feel like we're both sort of coming closer on this. But then you throw in the All In podcast. And that was not, that was just to have fun. And now it's obviously gotten larger than we thought it would. It peaked at the 41st episode in the country of all categories.
Oh, that's crazy.
Wow.
Episode 56 and 57 were like 41 and 55 or something. I don't know. Like I look at it over the weekend and that's crazy. So it's gotten extraordinarily popular. So then
you should get Chartable, by the way. They send you alerts on when you're
really?
ranking on different.
Okay. I think my team has that. I have to get that. So anyway, that has created another level to it, because when we break chops, everybody sees it as a 10x what it in reality we're experiencing. We do this as a course of action. And I basically started it because I grew up in Brooklyn where we break each other's chops as sport. It's kind of a way to show love and affection. He buys into that 100%. We've been friends for 20 years. We've been doing it for 20 years. So it makes everybody uncomfortable. When we go out with our wives or we're at a party, like our wives will take us apart and say, can you guys stop ribbing each other? It's making the other guests uncomfortable. I'm like, why would it be uncomfortable? This fucking not. Oh, sorry. Why would it be uncomfortable if this like Nazi sympathizing white supremacist fat bastard and I argue? And she's like, please stop. It's making it worse. We just, we just beep that, Nick, in the post-production. So it's actually never been bad, but we do argue over things. And one of the arguments has been, and I'm curious your position on this, is how much politics on All In? When you talk politics on any podcast, you probably have seen it on yours. You all of a sudden you got all these thumbs up, thumbs down. The comments go crazy. The tweets go crazy. You're an idiot. You're stupid. It's polarized like anything else. So it becomes like Thanksgiving dinner during the Trump era. And so I've been the other three besties who are not David Sachs. Freeberg doesn't want to talk about any politics. You see him like just zone out. If you're watching him on the stream during a
he just goes and does like real science everyone's throwing
he
barbs.
Literally walked out off on the, I thought he left the program, but he's like, oh, this is perfect time for me to get a cup of coffee. I'm like, you just can't leave in the middle of the taping. He's like, I just had a cup of coffee, whatever. It's like, okay, fine. So he hates it. Chamath is fine with it if it's in relation to, I'm the same position as me, markets, tech, science.
You can't argue it doesn't impact our world anymore.
And then David would like to talk about the insurrection. He wants to talk about he wanted to talk about Rittenhouse, and that was something like a big debate. Are we going to talk about this or not? And so anyway, that is at the core of it. And I think we've worked through most of it.
I mean, you asked for our take on it. Like my quick one is I actually love listening to All In for that reason. I thought I was going to listen to it for like business and tech stuff. And I'm excited. I tuned in a lot for like COVID updates and a lot for what's going on. I don't live in San Francisco, but like San Francisco politics, because I didn't really understand it until then. And I feel like it's an intelligent politics discussion. I mean, there's barbs, but Sachs is the first conservative to make arguments where I become amenable to them and then look at myself and I'm like, no, what are you doing? But like, it's smart. It's well reasoned. It's not incendiary most of the time.
David?
I totally agree. And I go back to, you can't separate anymore. Like tech and our world and our industry is so much more a fabric of the whole world. And so like to pretend that politics and world events and stuff, don't impact our industry and vice versa is silly. And there's no place else where you can get a good discussion of these things than All In. So I think it's great. I agree with Ben. I think it's a core part of the show.
I appreciate that. And I agree with you both. Like, I mean, to say it's part of the fabric of society, capital allocation, wealth creation, technology, and science are our society, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I don't think almost anything is important now. Entertainment, media, like religion.
I mean, all the movie studios
none of that
are
is
owned
important
by
anymore.
big tech. Like literally owned by, there are no more independent film studios. So is that enough? Yeah.
So, I appreciate it. What we're trying to do, we play poker most weeks or have dinner together, every couple of weeks, during poker. And we really, as a quartet, have had discussions about, hey, what is a vibrant civil discussion, right? And so like interruptions comes up all the time. Like how prepared are we? Like, and so that was another big discussion. Like, hey, are you interrupting people? It's like, it's a conversation. And, Sachs would show up with a monologue. And we had to have this like discussion, like, Sachs has researchers and writers who are, giving him notes, and none of us are doing that. I'm like, hey, listen, I don't want you monologuing on the show. I'm going to interrupt you if you monologue. So you can get 90 seconds into this, but when you get to 2 minutes or 3 minutes, I'm going to ask you a question. You got to pass the ball. This is not ISO ball. This is not like 90s basketball. You're not Allen Iverson or Carmelo Anthony. I want Warrior style basketball. I want the ball passing. And he agrees with that.
By the way, I don't know how this did in your analytics, but one of my favorite All-In episodes, if not my favorite for this year, was when you had Draymond on. I don't know if that was a deep cut or if that was high up on the charts, but it was awesome.
It was in the early days. We have to have him back on after the season. All right. So,
wait, so Jason, can I ask you one before we move to another topic? One final question on All In. How has your thinking evolved on the sort of Jason Calacanis media and investing empire since adding All In to the mix? Like, how does it fit in with Launch and Twist and how you're thinking about the next 5 and 10 years now?
So I love doing it. I love doing it. I am now, I turned 51 on Sunday. I have now oriented. Thank you. I've just oriented my life. How old are you guys, by the way?
32, and David, you're 35,
37. Just turned
37.
Yeah,
so I focused my entire life on performance, success, trying to be somebody, be important, get money, get power, get status. And I just made the decision after Tony Hsieh passed away, which is just now the year anniversary, and after COVID, that I am going to put an equal amount of effort into my personal enjoyment with my friends and my family, which has been a journey of my 40s, is trying to just put more effort into my friendships and families and relationships. So I bought a ski house, and I'm going to spend a month in Tahoe skiing and doing the show from there. So actually, I'm orienting the empire around my personal enjoyment of life and, my relationships, and the success is going to take care of itself because it has I was at like maybe 300,000 followers or something. I think I added 100,000 followers since All In became popular. I'm getting a lot of offers to do other media stuff now because people saw me in a different role, like as a moderator. So you might see me on some other, mainstream media stuff or other projects. So it has changed things for me. The things I love doing, investing in startups, performing on air, like doing podcasts, and writing, and being a great friend, to the people I love. Those are the things that I've taken stock of my life that I enjoy doing. And so that's what I'm orienting everything around. And you know what? Like, media is what I love to do. I love to create media. And it's really that simple. And like this, like last night, I was like, I can't wait to be on the show with you two, and I was like, I really enjoy our time together.
We felt the same way.
Chopping it up. And I get a little tingle, before All In or before certain guests. And, as part of that, since This Week in Startups went 5 days a week this year, we're bringing Molly Wood on. And so Molly Wood is obviously a very famous podcaster from NPR, New York Times. And before that, she kind of pioneered streaming media on CNET. And we've been friends for a long time. And she's joining us in January as the co-host of This Week in Startups. We'll take a little pressure off me and kind of add to the
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a 2-year thing. Yeah. I've been talking to her about it for 2 years, but she wants to be an investor. And so she was like, hey, how do I become an investor? And I was like, well, you quit your job and come work with me. And so she wants to do climate. So I don't know if you saw the Syndicate launched the SaaS Syndicate. And I'll just break a little news here. We're going to do a climate syndicate next.
Oh, sweet.
And Molly Wood did this great podcast this year called How We Survive. It became the #1 business podcast for a couple of weeks. And she's passionate about that. So she's going to spend the first half of the day working on This Week in Startups with me. Second half of the day, investing in climate startups and other startups. And I'm going to teach her how to be an investor. And we'll actually do that on air. So that's going to be like really exciting for me too, because I just think she's awesome. But how are you guys thinking about your media empire?
Well, it's a great question.
I mean, it's gotten very popular. I see you guys in the rankings. Like, we're both right there in the top, top 15 tech podcasts, 10 to 15.
That's right. It's been a while. I mean, we never expected any of this. Like, but
you're good at it.
So it's been thank you. It's been awesome. We live in this golden age, right? Like, I'm full time. Like, Acquired is like what I do. It's my job, quote unquote. Now, I used to be a professional venture capitalist with a hobby podcast on the side. Now I'm a professional podcaster with a fund, hobby venture capitalist on the side. And like, never been happier. I mean, we live in this golden age, right? Where like media broadly defined, what it's become, the internet, media influence is the key to, we were going to talk about Sequoia on this episode and the state of the VC landscape, as we always do. Like, just, being capital by itself is not enough anymore. What we do, what you do, what All In does, that you tell us, but I'd imagine for all four of your investing on All In, and you with the Launch and Twist empire, it's the best thing that you could do for your investing, right?
It's something you can do. It's not for everybody. I think you have to want to put yourself out there. You want to have an opinion, and it does take a lot of time, right? So I'm doing 6 podcasts a week, 2 hours approximately of effort each one. But for me, talking is my superpower, so it's not that hard. How is your business being impacted by this, Ben?
Yeah, it's been interesting. So I think a thing that we were really worried about for a long time is, so we started as like the normal podcast that everyone says you should do, which is 30 to 40 minutes. And we started bleeding longer and longer. And we got into this territory where like we do these, like we each do 50 hours of research on a company to produce a 3-hour podcast on the New York Times or TSMC, which went nuts this year. And we were getting a lot of
explain what TSMC
feedback.
Is.
Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturer. No, company, Taiwan Semiconductor Company.
Right? I think Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. Or
manufacturing
company or corporation.
But the 9th largest company in the world by market cap. They make all the chips, all the most advanced chips in all smartphones. And
this is a key asset in the world.
And it is a geopolitical linchpin.
It's like literally like it is a keystone or a linchpin. Like you pull the linchpin out or you remove the keystone, the arc collapses. Like this
literally modern life like disappears.
It's a really significant business that is more important. Let me ask you this, having you guys doing the deep dive on it, is it been more important than the actual Taiwan, like the country itself? Like if you think about China and the US interest, if we're being totally cynical or candid, do people care more about the people of Taiwan and the state/province, however you look at a country of Taiwan, or is this more about or equal about Taiwan Semiconductor?
I mean, we cannot compare the value of human life to the value of the market cap.
And thinking about how the communists.
Well, the thing is, though, it's not either. It's the same thing. The country Taiwan started. This is the whole history that we tell in the episode. Like, it was government policy, domestic policy, that they wanted to start this. So they recruited Morris Chang, the founder, who was by that point an American citizen. He's from China originally, from mainland China. Recruited him to come take over like a ministry, and then that led into one thing led to another. Then they started TSMC. The government owned it. They were outside shareholders, and they obviously still are now. But it's the same thing. It's like the most strategic asset, political asset that the government has.
Yeah. I guess the point that I wanted to make there is, so we do this 3-hour episode on TSMC, and we've done these 3-hour episodes on all these other companies, and it finally dawned on me that you can just go be weird in a corner of the internet, and the internet is now so big that if you just keep at it and you have reasonable distribution channels, you will find all the other people that are weird in the same way that you're weird, who will come conglomerate around. I love that. So while the conventional wisdom is don't do 3-hour podcasts, like 160,000 people who like 3-hour podcasts have found their way to us over the last 6.5 years of banging our head against a wall. So I find that inspiring for anybody who has something where they feel like they want to go and operate in some pseudo obscure corner.
I think that's exactly right. When people started telling me like, try to get this to, an hour, do this. And like I had the original producers on This Week in Startups were trying to like fit it into like a TV format. I was like, turn the microphones on. They're like, how long is it going to be? We got to tell the guest. I was like, tell the guest to just book 2 hours, and it might go over, might go under, and we'll get a hamburger or a coffee after, whatever they want to do. But just look at this as a conversation. It ends when we both think it should end. The end. Like,
love that.
If you don't have constraint, why would you add it? You have to ask yourself. So if there is no constraint, you would add constraint because you think it makes the product better, right?
Yep.
And people are just so used to things being a certain length, or they look at the top rankings, and they're like, oh, well, Ben Shapiro and the Daily Show, and all those daily things are exactly 25 minutes each day. And it's like, well, yeah, they're done by the New York Times or somebody. Like there's some reason there, but you don't have to.
Right. They're fitting into a traditional media format because they're also going to be distributed on traditional media.
That is actually what happens. They're on a regular radio. They're being syndicated in some cases. So yeah, they just may come to it with a little bit more of a rigid thing. But that's what I love about all of this. And then to answer the last part of your question, sort of like how does it fit into investing? So I'm a general partner in a fund in Seattle called Pioneer Square Labs, and our investments with PSL Ventures. And David in last January, despite much pushback, convinced me that we should do a Bitcoin episode, which was our first crypto foray. Amazing. It took us till January of 2021. But since then I've gone like way down the rabbit hole. Oh boy, here we go.
We're on our 7th Web3 related episode and a bunch more in the pipeline now. And we have 5 partners at PSL, but I am personally exclusively looking at crypto and Web3 investments now. And that's fairly new. It's in the last month, but it's just been a total change for me. And that wouldn't have happened without sort of having acquired as the vehicle to pursue that curiosity.
I tell people podcasts can be like your graduate school, and literally every year you get a new degree, or every 10 episodes, it's like, here's your new, minor in crypto. Here's your minor in smart contracts. It's like literally taking another couple of credits. And I always tell people it's a front for me to build relationships and get smarter. Right. And so I think maybe it's a good segue into crypto. Is that somewhere on the docket that we're talking about crypto?
I don't think it's explicitly on the docket, but it's like, hey, Jason, are we talking about mobile? Are we talking about social today?
Yeah, I mean, probably not.
Well, but I mean, I guess I'm trying to make the point. It's like it's in the fabric of everything now. Well,
let's look at it specifically at investing, because I literally was looking at a DAO company. And I'm looking at the DAO company. I'm like, somebody's going to make a DAO platform. I think, for me, I looked at the
needs to happen.
I look at the 4 stages of crypto, and I covered Bitcoin when it was trading in the cents, and I wrote a seminal piece like the most dangerous technology project I've ever seen. Turned out to be pretty correct.
Is this public? Like it's a blog post?
Yeah, they'll pull it up right now. It's,
sweet.
It was when I had my email newsletter. It was the most dangerous technology project I'd ever seen, and I'll ask my producers to pull these for the future. We'll talk about them on the pod. Maybe somebody on the producing team can look at when we first talked about Bitcoin. This was around that time I had a Bitcoin episode. The 4 stages I saw, putting aside the underlying technologies, in terms of use cases: store of value, not interesting to me. Interesting to somebody who's in a communist country, somebody who's got runaway inflation, somebody who's doing money laundering, whatever.
Somebody like me who just bought a hardware device to specifically put my
somebody who's geeking out, store of value, whatever. I would rather store my value in a ski house or something else. I don't know, a Vanguard fund. There's other places to store value that I think are much better for somebody in the developed world in the United States. Second one, money transfer. Again, we're in the developed world where money transfer is not a non-issue, and this stuff is more expensive, cumbersome, harder to use. So that was a fail for me as well. NFTs, collectibles, I kind of like those when and that was when I kind of got crypto curious, or crypto, okay, maybe I'll do something here. And then finally DAOs, which is really about company formation, governance. It's kind of like a new LLC structure. It's kind of like venture funds. It's kind of like running a company. It's kind of like culture and capital formation on a global basis. That to me was just that was just fentanyl for me.
Into your veins.
Right into my veins. I just was
I
smoked that DAO right up and I just collapsed. I was just give me more DAO. And so now I'm just like a junkie. But the problem I had was I started looking at these DAO companies. And I kid you not, I just start every conversation with, hey, can you show me a product demo? And they're like, yeah, here's a Figma, design, or here's our white paper, or here's our 6-pager in the, parlance of Amazon. And I was like, where's the product? And they're like, well, there's a Discord server, and there's a database. And I was like, well, can you walk me through the product? Nobody's got a product here. And they're like, product will be ready in 3 weeks. And I keep hearing that from people. And the valuation was, hundreds of millions of dollars, raising, low millions of dollars for basis points. I was like, this does not make sense as an investment. That's my.
But this is what happens. This is what happens every time there's a new paradigm, for lack of a better word. Like, back like in the original Web 1.0 bubble, Web 2.0 mobile. Like, there's tons
valuations
of people
never disconnected from reality like this.
Totally get disconnected, and there's tons of fraud, and there's tons of companies that go nowhere, and just Figma designs that never become products. But there are a few. Like, this is the moment they're going to be the next $1 trillion companies, quote unquote companies.
I'm not sure
that emerge out of this moment.
I'm not sure it'll be $1 trillion companies. It might be one or two, but I'm not sure like these platforms will be. I think their value, in the likely case, when I've seen on crypto valuations, and Ben, I'm very interested in hearing what valuations you're seeing and how disconnected they are from reality. When companies get these kind of valuations, $1 billion or more in value, and there's no product in market, remember Jason's rule, it's either a fraud or it's going to fail. Whether it's Quibi, Magic Leap? Quibi, Magic Leap, Theranos, Nikola, Fisker, any of these companies that become worth over $1 billion, but they don't have customers or a product in market.
Probably shouldn't apply to
Which
biotech.
One?
It probably shouldn't apply to any biotech.
Yeah, I mean, biotech, that would be different.
There was the whole Zymergen, Zymergen?
Well, but there's been lots of multi-billion-dollar no product in market companies like Moderna that then became products in market and were super viable.
I think they did have some products, like actually in the formation of making drugs, like their platform to make the drugs was the product. So if you look at that product did exist. The drug did not go through the approval process. So we might have to workshop Jason's law with that caveat, but I think it is a good edge case to caveat. But I mean, tell me a company that became worth $1 billion, Quibi, before the product was launched.
I don't know that they ever hit $1 billion, but what was Jason Calacanis' company?
What was that?
That was another one of those that was like huge valuation. But,
Vessel.
That
was in the era where like there were very few $1 billion companies. So I remember that he raised, I can't remember if it was a $40 or an $80 million seed round, and that was on a few $100 million valuation, and that was like 3x an outlier of anything else anyone had ever seen. So times are different now.
Yeah. What valuations are you seeing?
To answer your point,
and how do you reconcile them? Because I don't know if you saw Fred Wilson's post that said, "Listen, $100 million pre-launch product market fit. You cannot have a winning portfolio buying it at that price, knowing what we know about exits, even the extraordinary exits we're seeing today."
I thought that was one of the most cool-headed, sober, rational posts I've seen. It also nicely flies in the face of the sort of Andreessen Horowitz philosophy over the last decade of this is all going to be so much bigger than anybody can possibly imagine. So, on our Andreessen Horowitz episode, I can't remember the exact number, David, but someone was making the case that for Mark's return, fund to actually return, these companies would need to have an aggregate enterprise value of over $15 billion or something. And he was like, well, yeah. Of course it is. And it seemed crazy at the time and was totally, totally true. So I think Fred makes the well-balanced point that either we have a problem here or these things there's going to be way more multi-billion-dollar companies than anyone has, than possibly exist today. Anyway, in crypto, I'm seeing a bifurcation where if people are raising on the traditional structures where they're raising equity, they're a little overpriced relative to the regular insanity that's happening in the fundraising market right now.
Put a number on
things pre-product, pre-launch in the $15 to $30 million valuation range.
Oh, that's not that bad. That's
no, exactly.
Double or triple reality. Yeah.
Right. But then you get into when they're issuing tokens from the get-go or doing a SAFT, a simple agreement for future tokens, or things like that, where there's never any equity structure and they're purely starting by selling some number of the eventual fully diluted total number of tokens, and the valuations make no sense. Like they're 3, 4, 5x because they're not. The argument is, well, it'll never get diluted. We're never gonna, the fully diluted tokens that there's already a set number, and you'll never get diluted again. And you're like, you kind of have to.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. It's like there'll never be another secondary offering. There'll never be like an IPO. There's never going to be a Series D or a bridge round. There's never going to be a punitive bridge round with warrants that are 10-1. The idea is it would be like your startup has 1 billion shares on day one and they're trading for a fraction of a penny or a penny. And then, we'll take it from there. but it'll always be a billion.
And there's also a different notion where tokens have a second or third use case other than just representing sort of ownership in the value that is created, because so many of them, you have to have at least more than half, often more than 60% allocated for the eventual community of the thing that launches. So all the founders, all the investors, all the employees and they're not really employees, but all the people working on the project are going to be a minority. And so that's different too. That's going to make it at least 2 or 3x more expensive, because you have to, save a certain amount for the community in the future. So I have found, and I'm new to this process, I found that it just requires a very different way of thinking. And I'm still working through what's my framework to evaluate if something is a reasonable price, because price means a completely different thing in that token world.
Fascinating. You buy into this, David? You smoking this?
I think I don't know.
Are you mainlining it? You got tinfoil and a straw? Are you freebasing this craziness?
I think anytime you're talking about, maybe it's controversial, I think anytime you're talking about valuations or where the market is right now, it's just it's noise. It doesn't matter. I go back to this is
entry price doesn't matter for investing.
Okay, all of this that is going on, Web3, DAOs. Say you're 21 years old right now, you're in college, or even you're older, this is so amazing. If I were that age now, I'd be like, oh, okay, I could go work for a company, get a job where I'm selling my labor for money, do that for a while. Maybe someday I'll start a company with equity, and all my eggs are in one basket. This blows all that up. You'd be like, okay, cool. I'm going to give my efforts to a bunch of projects. I'm going to get tokens in those projects. I can diversify. I can work on where my interests take me. Totally. Those projects can do well. It's just a whole new model of labor and capital.
But I'm talking about in our day jobs, entry price, investing. But I like your further point, which is the Great Resignation and young people becoming entrepreneurial. So let's put a pin in that and get to that. But before we get to that
there's a thing, David, that I know you want to say or that you've said to me before, which I think is a reasonable and succinct way to put this, which is, because we are elephant hunting in the game of venture, all that matters is that the entry place that you get in is sufficiently low, below some reasonable number, such that you're still early stage. Mm-hmm. And do you care how low below that? Not really. Just go put wind in the sails of the company. But as long as you're in early stage in a winner,
that's what depends on the style of investing too. I used to be a professional venture capitalist for over a decade, very traditional. I'd make 1 to 2 investments a year. I'd sit on the board, my model has completely changed now. And I think back on that, that's a great, totally viable model. But you're betting on so much to go right with every individual investment there. You are threading a needle every single time. And now I just think about it more as okay, I and my partner Nat in my fund in kindergarten, we're going to make 50 to 100 investments a year. They're going to be small checks. And most of those, we're not going to make any money. But some of those are going to make so much money that it'll pay for everything. And we have so many chances to be right. And what I'm saying is that with Web3 and DAOs, that brings that same dynamics to companies themselves, to founders, to employees. And I just think that's we did a great special episode a couple of weeks ago with NZS Capital, which is a hedge fund based out of Colorado.
Those guys are so smart.
They're so awesome. And the whole premise, they spent a lot of time at the Santa Fe Institute, which is an amazing institute. Yes. And their whole premise in starting the firm was we don't know what the future is. And if you just have that as your baseline, we don't know what's going to happen. Then what do?
They've culturally outlawed the word conviction. No one's allowed to come and say, I have conviction in this investment, because they're you don't know the future. That's a ridiculous thing to say.
And now when I think traditional venture investing, caring about valuations, that's you're kind of betting on yourself that you know what's going to happen. But if you're just I don't know what's going to happen, so these valuations are probably crazy right now. Sure. Right. But they may not be crazy. And as long as you're investing through time periods and up cycles and down cycles, it's all going to balance out.
Interesting. I might take the other side of this, that some price discipline matters, and that outrageous valuations could be a sign of a founder who is optimizing for the wrong things. And if you're optimizing for the wrong things, like I've seen founders turn down like top tier firms to get plus 10, 20% on a valuation. And then they just don't have Benchmark or Sequoia, whoever on their thing, but they got some second tier or third tier firm to, go 30%, 40% over what those firms offered. I had one founder who got offered to vest all of their shares ahead of time, so no vesting schedule, and control of the board. And I was like, but don't you want that person on your board because they've done this 100 times? Isn't that the value? And you're framing it as that.
No, I totally agree with you
weird,
under that circumstance.
That's the weird
Let's compare
thing
apples to apples, though.
Sure.
Like great firm offering you ludicrous price and 2 to 3x as much money as you actually need in this round versus taking a more reasonable valuation and selling at a pretty much the same amount of the company.
Yeah, you go for the higher valuation, obviously, right? Yeah. So I don't blame founders for taking advantage of this moment in time. I do think a lot of firms I'm seeing are going to have a hard time reaching the valuations they hit. I don't know about crypto because crypto is just so wild that, having a global day trading base of users that is completely unregulated, participating in startups. I think I'm just sort of like stitching this together here in my head, but let's see what you guys think and you can riff on it. We had, as the venture community angels, a lock on accreditation and investing in startups. Then you had this equity crowdfunding, which is very interesting, and kind of opens it up, and Syndicates opens it up a little more. But then you say, hey, we'll let anybody invest in this token, which is a proxy for a share, but we're just going to circumvent all.
Whoa, careful there, buddy.
It is obviously a share because people are buying it for it to appreciate, and nobody buying them is actually using them for the utility of them, or 99.9% are. So if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And so it's a duck, period. Sorry, folks. You look at that. What that shows to me is there's a global appetite to participate in company formation. But then imagine if, when Uber was starting out, or Robinhood, or pick the great firms that you guys have invested in, if all of a sudden the public, when they saw the app and downloaded it, and Twitter or Foursquare went viral at South by Southwest, everybody could just take out their Coinbase wallet and Robinhood and just start trading it and buying into it. They're like, what are you using? Oh, Twitter? Oh yeah, I'll buy 100 tokens of Twitter. Oh yeah, what is that this year at South by? It's Lyft and Uber. Okay, yeah, I'll buy 100 tokens of that.
Yeah, no wonder they get so valuable so fast.
Well, basically, you're taking the virality of Twitter and social media and the algorithm there, and then you're combining it with finance and private companies. So you literally are going. I'm putting this together in my head. Like, I think these tokens are like the equivalent of going viral on social.
And the real next layer on top of that compounds the whole thing is, if it's not just I open up Coinbase and, or FTX or whatever and buy some of that, assuming it's traded on a centralized exchange, if it's actually something where the token has intrinsic value in the network and I decide, I'm going to start participating in the network and I'm going to own some of that, part for speculation value because I think it's going to go up, but the mere fact that I then adopt it grows the network and grows the intrinsic value of the network. And so you do actually have this thing where the price is growing. It's the old Buffett aphorism: price is what you pay, value is what you get. Sure, the price is going because it's this public thing that everyone's buying in a mad speculative rush. But in this ideal scenario, the value is also growing because the network is expanding. Solana or Ethereum.
Okay. Are you using Solana and Ethereum in your day-to-day life or professional life?
I just held up my weird little hardware wallet that I just got to do DeFi stuff.
Okay, yeah, showing people your crypto is not to try to. By the way, have you guys seen these memes of people showing girls in the club their Robinhood accounts or Coinbase accounts?
Come on, that's so.
I swear to God, it's so great.
This isn't to show you look, I have coins. This is to show you I have an application on my computer. I use my Phantom wallet on Chrome.
But you're not doing anything.
Wait, I got a good example.
Solving a problem in your life with these coins. That's where this whole thing.
I got a great example. We invested in. You should have these founders on the show. Brain Trust. Have you had Adam and Gabe on the show?
Brain Trust? Have we, Nick? I don't know. I don't think so.
You should.
We have not.
Full disclosure: we invested at kindergarten, and Ben.
Whoa, pumping his book.
I know.
Here we go. Here's the plugs.
These guys are awesome. So it's Adam was the founder of Doctor on Demand. Like super legit Silicon Valley guy. He's been around for many generations since Web 1.0. And
I know. Yes, it's
okay,
keep going.
And so
this one is interesting.
This
next
is
generation
super
labor marketplace.
Yeah, it's much more than this, but the gross analogy is Upwork or Fiverr or whatnot. But with crypto, and it makes so much sense because
explain it to somebody who doesn't understand crypto.
Great,
but does understand Fiverr.
Okay, so on Fiverr, you get a job, you work a job. It's temp jobs, labor, etc. It's low paying jobs because so much of the value is going to the network. Like you're working these jobs, you're not really building anything. Like a lot of the value is going to the company. They're taking a big take rate, etc. On Brain Trust, you take a job, you work on there. Brain Trust takes de minimis. I think it's might be 5 or 10%, like very low take rate, and they want to get 10%. It lower. Ultimately, get it I think down to 0. And you get paid in whatever currency you agree with the employer. But everybody also gets tokens on the network. You work your labor, you get tokens. Companies get tokens. People who refer people, labor in jobs that happen, get tokens. And then you are becoming an equity owner in the network by working there. You can work lots of different jobs, and as more jobs happen on the network, that token increases in value, and so you're incentivized to do everything through the network versus where Fiverr or Upwork or whatnot, you're incentivized to take that offline immediately.
So imagine you got paid in Bitcoin, since everybody knows what Bitcoin is. You go, and I'm a writer, and I write a press release for somebody. I'm good at writing press releases. I write a press release. I say, hey, that would be if I was going to charge somebody to write their press release, I charge them $5,000. But most people probably charge $1,000. So let's say it's $1,000. Okay, yep. Here's a $1,000 press release. Boom, I wrote it for you. I get 1,000 Bitcoin instead of $1,000 in cash. I can then cash it out, or I could spend it with other people on the network. And the idea is, in order to be a contributor on this, you have to own a certain amount of these tokens or something.
It's not even that complex. It's you get paid. You want to get paid in USD. You get paid in USD. You get $1,000 in cash. You also get Brain Trust tokens. And the company.
So it's
gets
like a pot sweetener then.
Yeah,
both.
Exactly.
I just like the creative thinking here, right? Because then if you could use those tokens to do other things, and
as those tokens grow in value, then you're like, crap, that job that I made $1,000 USD on, now in USD equivalent 2 years later, if the token appreciates in value, wow, I made $10,000 on that job.
Or Ben, and you can relate to this, sometimes we buy extra fuel for jets, like 3 years in advance. So if we think jet fuel's low now, you'll just buy 3 years worth of jet fuel. I did it last week.
Looking at your PJ, and you're like,
it's just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna buy. Sorry,
you got to get to that ski house somehow.
Well, exactly. No, I'm driving there. Trust me. It's like, I'm getting snow tires right now. I don't have a PJ. I have snow tires. Like that's the level I'm on. I'm getting snow tires.
You have friends.
They're really
PJs.
good. They're really good snow tires for my Model Y. But some people will buy 3 years worth of jet fuel. So actually, if you think about Brain Trust like Fiverr, if I were able to buy $10,000 worth of Fiverr credits now and had a reasonable expectation that it might go 3, 4, 5x, my buying power would go from 10 press releases. If it goes to $50,000, now I have 50 press releases sitting waiting there. So it's almost like paying in advance. I could, spend it later.
Totally.
Kind of cool.
This is an example too. Valuations maybe they're too crazy now, but back then we invested pre-launch. I think the valuation was like 166 million or something like that. Crazy, right? They launched.
You invested in this company at 166 million.
Yeah, but listen
what happened. They launch and they list on Coinbase. It trades up to an $11.5 billion market cap. It's now down a lot since then, but it's still $1 to $2 billion.
Did you buy shares in the company or tokens or both?
Saft.
So you have future tokens. Did you get your tokens?
Got tokens. Yep.
Are you allowed to sell them, or are you locked?
We're locked. Yeah.
So that's ridiculous. The people who bought the tokens on the free market can do whatever they want, but the VCs who put the money in early are locked for how long? Oh, you must have gotten a much better deal.
Well, we invested pre-launch at, I think it was $166 million valuation,
which would be a lower valuation than whatever the tokens were trading.
Right.
For most.
If we had bought in at $11.5 billion, then we wouldn't be locked, but we wouldn't have bought in at, we would have bought in at $11.5 billion.
this is the problem with what's happening in crypto is these valuations, like, oh my God, it's worth 10 billion. Put aside Brain Trust, just call it Acme Corp because I don't want to deride this company. So Acme tokens are worth 10 billion, the market cap. But 10 billion of tokens have not been sold. $10 million worth of tokens have been sold, but people are buying in $100 increments. Nobody can clear their positions. So when we look at Solana, and a lot of my besties have big positions in Solana and other, that famous fund. What's the name of the fund?
Multicoin. We had Kyle on the show.
Yeah, Kyle on the show. So Multicoin, like, they're in this very unique position. There's not a market to sell all of those. So what do? You're just going to be like, drip drabbing them out to sell them as you go. And so that is the thing about crypto that I think people don't realize is that I would guess 2/3 of the valuation of crypto is unrealized and unrealizable.
Because there's not deep liquidity to actually trade your position.
There's not enough liquidity to do it. And I think if you look at Bitcoin specifically, I mean, maybe 1/3 of the wallets and tokens are dead. I keep asking this to people. People keep saying low double digits are lost coins. So when you look at the market cap of Bitcoin, 20%, chop it right off, let's say. Some people have told me 1/3, but let's just take 20%.
How much does Satoshi have?
I
think it's like 2 billion.
They've never touched their
2
wallet,
million
right?
or 3 million of the 21 million.
So that wallet's been dead since day one. It's never sold. So that's crazy to me.
Like, here's a question though that I was thinking about the other day. Like, we can observe if there's ever actually been the transaction. So we were like, oh, the coins haven't left that wallet. If I were Satoshi, in some ways you're like, well, that's proof Satoshi's dead because no human could actually resist the temptation of being able to go make that much money or spend that much money or do something with that money. They could totally take a loan against that as collateral.
Oh,
so there's a chance
better they could do. There's
totally, because then it's not on chain.
Here's how you do it. It's a little secret that happens sometimes in our industry. You may not have
Jason,
come across
are you Satoshi?
I didn't want to bring it up, but I am
breaking news.
I'm 1/16 of Satoshi. If I was Satoshi,
is this like when you were? You said you were VC Braggs.
Yes, which I thought was great, and people still to this day think I'm VC Braggs. It's so great.
Oh, so great.
Well, and I coordinated with VC Braggs. VC Braggs, I'm DMing with VC Braggs all the time, saying this is hilarious. Please keep going because I was great like, for the original targets.
And then you take out your other phone and you're like, "Thanks, Jason."
So anyway, I was like, okay, how can we make people believe this? I'm going to tweet something from the VC Braggs, and then I'm going to delete it, and then you screen capture it, and then share it somewhere else to prove it. So we were like going like through a whole like deep, how do we convince people that I accidentally tweeted from at Jason or at This Week in Startups? Anyway, putting that aside, here's how
this is like QAnon for startups.
Basically, yeah, it's a little Pizzagate or something. Aliens, reptiles, Illuminati. So you would create an LLC, Ben, and you'd say, I'm contributing of my, 20% of the Bitcoin. I'm going to put 1%, I'm pledging 1% into that LLC. And then if you all want to buy it, I will sell it to you for half price under the concept here that you can't sell it for 10 years. Boom. So they could have done all kinds of off-market transactions like that, and could be doing them all the time with a non-disclosure.
Yeah,
the reason this comes up is...
I don't know if they still do with employee equity in startups, right?
Well, what happened to me was I owned equity in a high-growth startup at one point, and it was a very coveted share, and that company was not allowing people to sell them because the founder ruled with an iron fist, and that was why he was so successful. And
I don't know who you're talking about.
Once upon a time in startup land.
Once upon a time in startup. Somebody said to me, listen, don't worry about it. F that guy. We'll make an LLC. You sign this piece of paperwork. You contribute your stuff. I contribute into that X number of dollars. We now own your shares and this amount of cash. Anytime you want cash, you take it out. And then I own a couple of shares. And it's just a liquidity pool for you. And nobody has to know. And I was like, I'm not going to do that because... he's my friend, and I'm just
that when people were doing that, at least with startup equity, there was a lot of risk because if the company found out, they could cancel those shares, right?
Theoretically, they could cancel those shares. That has never gone to the test, and so this person is like, no, they can't do it. It would go to the Supreme Court or whatever. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to be doing.
Yeah, right.
With one of my besties going to the Supreme Court. Like, I trust my bestie. I'm looking at the data. Like, liquidity. Illiquidity is a feature, not
Turned out it was very beneficial for you to wait.
Yes.
But this may
The LLC was not based in Wyoming, by the way. It was not a DAO.
May or may not be relevant to this conversation. I'm just curious. Popped in my head. Are you still in touch with Travis? What's he up to these days?
Unrelated.
Thank you for asking. I don't talk about Travis publicly, and I don't talk about the guy with the rocket ships publicly anymore because the press now, because of reblogging, if I talked about the SNL thing and the amount of blowback when you have a high profile friend like that, it's just like it's back channel blowback. Yeah. It's people asking me like to ask, high profile friends to, solve some problem like their kids benefit.
Makes sense.
And the other problem is, I basically told my team.
Well, sorry to bring it up, but.
No, it's totally fine to bring it up. I actually like talking to you about it. When you start having I have acquaintances and friends, and then there's like very close friends. When I have close friends, and I was on CNBC in the early days of, let's say, specifically Uber and Tesla, and I say, listen, I have the Roadster. It's amazing. I was out there stumping for my friends. Hey, Uber's great. They're going to get through their problems. Hey, Tesla's amazing. Yes, the Model S is late, but I have the first one. It's incredible. It's transcendent. I was doing that. My friends were on high profile, and I was supportive. So no problem. Then if your friends become too high profile, if I mentioned something about a Chamath SPAC now, like if I had Chamath on earlier, I'm like, hey, meet my friend Chamath Palihapitiya. Here's how you pronounce his last name. That was like 5 to 10 years ago, and I was introducing him to the world on the pod. That could take one week. Now, if I were to say something about Chamath and then bring up one of the IPO SPACs, it gets reblogged, and people say, well, he's an insider. He's his bestie. He has inside information. This is a publicly traded stock. And then all of a sudden, I'm trading on a friend's reputation as opposed to supporting a friend. So now I support my friends. If they become so high profile, I've now just learned to just turn off the spigot. So everybody keeps asking me about Travis. I spend time with Travis. I know a lot about what he's doing. I say nothing because he has said, I want nobody to talk about what I'm doing. And I said, great, I respect that.
Totally.
And then people are like, are you an investor? Are you involved? Are you on the board? And I say, I don't speak about it. The end,
That is 100% his rate. That is great.
And you're a good friend.
I try to, one of the things I've tried to do in my life is be the best friend possible for my friends because it gives me joy to be able to take a phone call from somebody who is having a hard time. And I took these texts and from Tony, leading up until his suicide. And, it's like something that's stuck with me of like, did I do enough in that situation? Could anybody have done anything in that situation? And, it's like heavy stuff to be somebody's good friend and then have them kill themselves, in a really disastrous way. And so I've just, this is like, you ask me like what I'm thinking about and top of mind for me in my career at 51, it's that. It's like I have a lot of friends in high pressure situations or friends who, have died early from, like Tony, from drug abuse and mental health issues. And like, that's what I think about is like my friendships and whatever, because I'm not going to be here much longer. I'm 51. I got 19 to 40 years, hopefully. I want to really enjoy these and be supportive. So I didn't mean to bring the show down, but that's how I think about it.
It's, I mean, well, and it kind of, I don't know, weird to connect this to DAOs and everything, but like I think that's what's so cool about DAOs and Web3 is like, you get to do stuff with your friends and that leads to awesome stuff, like.
I love that about DAOs and crypto. Let me throw this up there. You said earlier, I think, Ben, or no, maybe it was you, David, that there's always fraud, there's always craziness, and then something real comes out of it. I agree with that as a premise. I've been super critical of crypto. I was like super enthusiastic. Then I became super critical with all the grifts and the ICOs,
right? And
these like stupid like NFT painting the tape and market manipulation. And then now I see NFTs that have IP included with them and residuals and smart contracts. And then I'm seeing DAOs. If we are in a journey of where this becomes legitimate technology that people use every day, and just pure speculation, if that was like a 9-inning game, what inning are we in?
That's a good question. I saw a stat. I don't know if this is correct or not, but I saw it somewhere. That something like 2 or 3% of the U.S. population owns an NFT at this point. That may be an incorrect stat.
What number?
2 or 3% of the U.S. population.
I don't buy that, but that's incredible.
That seems high to me. But if that's true, then like, wow, that's a lot farther along than I would have thought.
That'd be 9 million people, because 270 million adults, 300 million adults now, something like that.
This is not the number of adults, but this is a tweet that I saw yesterday. Someone did an analysis of 6.1 million trades of 4.7 million NFTs, which is interesting to see. Like 1.5 trades per NFT is the average. Shows that the top 10% of traders have traded 97% of NFTs, which definitely puts meat on the bones of the hypothesis that a lot of NFT trades are wash sales intending to artificially boost prices.
100%.
There's some interesting graphs that they show.
Define wash trades for people who don't know.
Selling something to realize the loss and then very quickly thereafter buying it again and resetting your basis.
Right. So you bought the NFT for $10,000. You sell it to another wallet for $100. You've got $9,900 in losses, but you still own the asset.
Yes.
But then when you do those wash trades, don't you get the tax?
Well, the proposed tax regulation for next year that has passed the House but not passed the Senate will make digital assets subject to wash trade rules. So that, in all likelihood, there's only another month left on that being an unregulated thing.
So where do you feel? 9 innings. When the 9th inning hits, this basically becomes 2005 using the internet.
Well,
everybody uses it. Everybody's got a mobile phone with the internet on it. It's the moment when like the iPhones in people's pockets, BlackBerries, and everybody is used to the internet.
So I haven't defined it in terms of innings. I've defined it in terms of years. And the thing I keep going back and forth on are we 1994 or 1999? Because you could make an argument we're 94 because like the real heavy use case things, the Amazons of Web3 are just now starting. But the craziness level feels pretty 99.
Oh, I like that framing. So the technology development is 94. We're at Mosaic browser, Netscape 1.0.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you look at
barely
MetaMask,
have images
like that
working.
is Mosaic.
Yeah, okay. So we're like Mosaic going into Netscape. But the hype and the finance is like peak 99, 2000. I think that's exactly right, actually.
Everything is so much faster now. Every cycle is so much faster. Every trend is so much faster. Information disseminates so much faster that like the hype and the bubbles popping and the bubbles coming back, like all of the cycles are just massively accelerated now.
Wow. I think that is the best framing I've heard in a long time. And I was writing a blog post called Crypto Cognitive Dissonance. And I think you just gave me the supporting point, which is, you have this cognitive dissonance, which is there are so many scams going on here. And there's no way these valuations match reality because there's no use case. But then you look at the underlying technology and its potential, and it doesn't take a genius. In fact, it just takes somebody with a base level of understanding of business and technology, David, to understand that this is going to change everything. At some point, these things are too powerful as a collection of technologies to not be highly disruptive. It's just obvious. And that's the dissonance we have on podcasts or on Twitter is like holding two ideas at the same time in your head.
It's the hallmark of intelligence.
Well, yeah, tolerance for ambiguity certainly is. Yeah.
Oh no, there's a famous quote. Who said it? Of the hallmark of intelligence is holding two conflicting ideas in your head at the same time.
I remember your wife Jenny told you, David. So that came from a good
she told me, but I forget where.
Cognitive dissonance is the psychological phenomenon, and then a tolerance for ambiguity is, I think, how I think people explain it in academia, which is when there's an ambiguous situation, which is typically because you have conflicting thoughts. If you can hold them in your head for a little bit of space, like Ben just did eloquently, hey, it's 94 in terms of the technology, it's 99 in terms of the hype cycle. Great. Okay, now that gives you a framework to hold it in your head and say, okay, that's a really dangerous place to be as an investor. It's a really great place to be as an investor if you're not caught up in the hype and you're focused on the tech. Right? You can actually develop a strategy by holding conflicting thoughts in your head.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we did 3 3-hour episodes on the complete history of Berkshire Hathaway at the same time as doing deep dives on Bitcoin and Ethereum in the first 6 months of this year. And like that, I think is that is how I got smarter this year, was doing those things that couldn't be more diametrically opposed, like pure value investing versus mostly speculation, and like believing that there are true intrinsic merits to both.
I just got this from one of my producers. F. Scott Fitzgerald famously wrote, "The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. One should, for example, be able to see that things are hopeless yet be determined to make them otherwise," which is Viktor Frankl. I don't know if you guys have ever read Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing.
Really great late holiday read.
I've read it 3 times in my life. I think maybe it's a good idea for me to read it over the break again. But yeah, I'm not even going to explain what it is. If you've heard the name Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning, I'm going to just give every young person out there a gift. Don't read reviews. Just buy the book, put it in your drawer, and when you have a time to read
it's like 40 pages, right?
It's more than that, but it's a quick read. You can do it in a weekend.
Yeah.
It's a thin book with a lot of deep and important ideas. Okay, rapid fire. We got to get out of here. Amazing episode. If you are listening on the This Week in Startup stream, just type Acquired FM into your podcast player, click subscribe, write a review, and then go ahead and follow the YouTube channel. Maybe consider subscribing if you want to get into their awesome Slack.
And likewise, if you're listening on Acquired, go subscribe to the JCal Empire. All In, Twist, YouTube.
You can just browse the top technology shows. They'll all come up.
Well,
do you have a preference of how people consume? Something we're thinking about a lot these days: video versus podcast versus.
I am focused on building a great team right now and training that team. So we now have 3 full-time producers on This Week in Startups. You can reach them at producers@thisweekinstartups.com, and then empowering them,
excellent producers,
and putting them in charge of specific projects. And then I have Charles, who does AV, and then Molly coming on board. And so, it's a 6-person team plus 2 salespeople, 8 people. I focus on the team, and then people can consume wherever. And we do live streaming, we do clips, and we just look at the data. And, I kind of feel like, Ben, you nailed it before, which is I think you were talking about making something crazy obscure. Maybe that was you, David. And then the world finds it. That was you, David, who said that.
It was Ben.
It was Ben.
Look.
Yeah, I think that's the right insight. It's just you make something you're passionate about, and then people find it.
Yep.
And, This Week in Startups is a niche podcast that's gotten, I never envisioned it as like a top 10 or 20 podcast in tech. I thought it was a niche podcast just about startups, but it's expanded, and, 5 days a week, I can't talk just about startups. So it's kind of got a bigger mandate now. Okay, rapid fire. What didn't we hit on the list, Ben, that you wanted to hear from David and I about?
Our rapid fire favorite carve-outs, our favorite books, movies, TV shows, things we read of all of 2020 that we would recommend to listeners.
Well, for TV shows, I am obsessed with Succession.
Oh, it's so good. I'm glad you caught my PJ's reference earlier.
Yeah. I mean, the last 3 episodes of Succession is just extraordinary. Like they just keep peaking and peaking and peaking. And are you also in on this, David, Succession?
I don't watch enough TV, so no, I need to at some point.
It's not even TV. It's more like Dickens.
Yeah. Well, and it's about News Corp and the Murdochs, right?
Ostensibly,
who I used to work for, so I gotta go.
It's ostensibly about that.
Watch it.
But what it's really about is power, privilege, family,
how money corrupts,
corruption, society, and the characters in it. I don't know where you are in your power rankings or who your favorite characters are, but
you can't make a Tomlet without breaking a few Gregs. I'm like all in on the Greg character.
Cousin Greg. For me,
Cousin Greg.
Obviously Logan's amazing, but I feel Kendall is a snowflake and annoying, and I feel Shiv is like a super woke lib, but who also wants power and is kind of like disingenuous. And for me, it's about Roman. I feel like Roman is like a pragmatist who wants to win, who loves his dad, who knows his dad is flawed, but cares about the empire and building the empire and maintaining and growing. And it doesn't matter what the costs are. It matters what the outcomes are. And he's
You're saying like the ends justify the means for Roman.
I think Roman is looking at it, and he's almost like an edgelord shit poster, where he's, slash, like, so that would be how you would describe him in today's parlance, and you previously described him as a rabid capitalist CEO, a marauding pirate. Those two things are kind of the same, which is, nothing matters. It doesn't matter who's running for president. What matters is we are influential in helping put that person in power, and we have a relationship with them. So if it's Trump or it's Obama, all that matters is how does that benefit us? And where is our seat in power in relation to that? But yeah.
I'll go out on a limb and say that there are 0 people who are pure likable on the show. Like,
no,
Greg's probably the closest, but it's because he's kind of a bumbling idiot until the moments that he's not.
Yeah, I think he might be. They've kind of been teeing Greg up to have his moment at some point. You get that sense?
Yep.
I think the ultimate thing would be for him to just get absolutely demolished and that moment to never arrive. Like, I think that's actually what they're thinking is like, oh yeah, he's going to save the day. And the best possible thing is he doesn't have a trust fund. He gets fired and he has to go start his career over, and he's never important. And
You're going to sue Greenpeace?
Is there a way for me to sue like my grandpa, like in a loving way? No, it's not. Okay, so anyway, Secession for us. What do you got, David? What you said you don't watch TV or movies? I don't buy it, but okay.
Well, I do. I got one TV. This is how much under a rock I live. Finally, Jenny and I get into Ted Lasso. Big fans. So great.
Perfect pandemic.
Yeah, so great. But instead of TV, used to be my guilty pleasure is no longer guilty. I have fully embraced it. I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of. I love playing video games.
Wow.
So I got after like a 10, 15 year hiatus, I got the new Xbox that came out this summer.
Is that 5 or something? Where are they at?
It's the X and the S. I got the S, which is nice. It's real cute. It's a little.
So they don't even number it anymore. They're just like, it's the Xbox, and
it's the
2021, and you bought it.
And all the games work on all the old ones too. It's just like how good a graphics. It's kind of like how dialed in do you want to be? I love it. And Xbox Game Pass is the best because like you get access to dozens, hundreds of games.
It's like Apple Arcade or Spotify for games.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have a game that you love or a genre of game you love?
Oh my God, Halo. I grew up.
That's first person shooter.
Yep. I grew up on Halo, like kind of high school, college years, and then hadn't played in so long. And then they have the Master Chief Collection, which is a remastered version of all the old ones. And there's Halo Infinite, the new one coming out. So I've just been playing with all these old. I will confess as well. I have been playing the new Age of Empires 4, which was re-released. Nice. And when this is my little tradition. I get the girls to bed, whatever. I have the Knicks game. If it's an early Knicks game, I just record it. I get everybody to bed. And then I sneak back to my office and I pull up Age of Empires, the Knicks game, and my Slack and email. And I'll play a little Age of Empires, do a little Slack and email, watch the Knicks game, and I just have my giant 49-inch monitor, 3-window setup, and I can just have 2-3 hours of watching the Knicks, playing a game, grinding, because I can't be focused on one thing anymore. My brain is just forever corrupted into multitasking. Yeah, my brain's broken. You guys got a book you like? You got a book or an audio book you like this year? Let's hear it.
Earlier this year, after doing all the research for the Andreessen Horowitz couple of episodes that we did, obviously they based that a lot on CAA. And so I was like, I should learn about CAA. And I read Michael Ovitz's book, Who is Michael Ovitz? Yeah. It is so good. Amazing. If you like Shoe Dog or Ride of a Lifetime or any of these like unbelievable like business thrillers, it is definitely one of those. And I don't think enough people in our world know about how powerful CAA and Michael were in their heyday.
I have the ultimate build on that. The Oral History of Creative Artist Agencies. Your next listen.
Yeah.
And did you listen to it yet?
Now. I am it's 12 hours into the audiobook. So
that's a great compliment to the Ovitz one. And then the other compliment book there it is, Powerhouse. The other compliment to that is Ride of a Lifetime.
So good.
You both business. So if you take those three and you put them together as like a little sesh, you will get all the Disney stuff and the building of Cap Cities and ABC and whatever, CAA's involved in all that stuff going on in Jurassic Park and this and that. So you get like, it basically gives you the 80s and 90s in Hollywood, and then how you got to the Disney mega corporation, which if you
and it's like shining a flashlight on these like different corners, like it's like lighting up different corners of the universe as you read each one of these books.
Yes. And it's Rashomon, like 5 different versions of the truth to kind of get to what actually happened, right? So if you don't know the reference for folks listening, Kurosawa, famous Japanese director, director period, had a film Rashomon, which is about a crime that occurs, and there's different people's perspectives. So the movie is shown from their different perspectives, and it is about the ultimate nature of truth.
So great.
Other books
been recommended to me that I need to read as part of our, learning about this space in Hollywood and all the analogies to tech. OG, have you ever read The Genius of the System? It was recommended to me years ago. I got to read it. It's about the OG original studio system. How did that get built up? And then, of course, that's what it was already starting to fall apart. But then, really, when Ovitz left William Morris and started CAA, that really blew up the studio system and put the power back in the artists and the agents' hands.
Amazing. I on the fiction tip, I really like The Martian. And the follow-up to that, Project Hail Mary, came out from Andy Weir.
I just bought it. That's my holiday reading.
It's great. I really enjoyed it. And
which one's better?
The Martian was so unique in terms of his style. I feel like he is like a standard bearer for Michael Crichton, where Crichton would very much get into the science and the technology and then create a great, really fast-paced story to go with it. And I actually had Andy Weir on the program before the movie came out, but after the book came out, because he was down in San Jose, and I actually went to his apartment. He's like, "Yeah, you can come to my condo and film me." And I went to his tiny little condo before he became a Hollywood guy.
That's awesome.
I don't know what episode it is. I'm going to throw it into the chat. And then I hosted a screening of The Martian with him, and I did a Q&A after in San Francisco at the Metreon, and I invited all of our fans to come. So anyway, I think you're going to really like Project Hail Mary. And then, as mentioned, and then on the bio tip, I finally got around to Grinding It Out, the Ray Croc story.
Oh,
absolutely fantastic. If you've seen the movie, The Founder.
Yep.
Have you seen The Founder?
Yep.
Yeah, I have not, but
incredible.
It feels slightly fictionalized, but I think it's really good.
Well, if you watch the 2, it's pretty tight. And then I'll add to it Mark Knopfler's, the leader of Dire Straits, song "Boom Like That" is a song that the director and writer of the Founder. It turns out Mark Knopfler read Ray Croc's biography in whatever years ago, wrote this song "Boom Like That." And then the directors heard the song "Boom Like That," read the biography. And so just do those 3 together.
Oh, sweet.
So great.
So I'm giving you a little trifecta there on the pop culture tip. I also reread, because I started writing my next book, I re-listened to when I was in
What's
Italy.
It on? Can you give us some deets?
It's going to be about money. And that's as much as I'll say.
Okay.
But it's not a tactical book like Angel. This is a book, like big think book. And so it's for everybody. But On Writing by Stephen King is a really, really great practical book about writing combined with his story. And there's just a great moment in it where
Stephen King, he's the best.
Well, there's an amazing anecdote I'll just tell briefly here. He was a teacher. He wrote like 3 pages about Carrie, and just about how this girl had her first menstruation cycle, and the girls made fun of her or whatever. And he was very frustrated with it. And he crumpled it up and threw it away. His wife pulled it out, read it, said, "You got to finish this. I love this. This is like incredible. Please finish it." He finishes it. He sells it for like essentially 2 years' salary as a teacher. He's making like $4,000. He got like $8,000 or $9,000 for this, paperback. Back then, paperbacks and hardcovers were 2 different deals. So he gets the paperback deal. The paperback takes off. The hardcover takes off. He sold the hardcover, and then the paperback rights are still out there. He gets a call from his agent, the publisher, because the publisher then would split with him whatever they got. The publisher, of course, says, hey, listen, we got you $20,000. We got $40,000. You get half, so you get $20,000. It says $400,000. You get $200,000. He goes, oh, wow, $20,000. You're kidding. He goes, no. It's $400,000. You get $200,000. Okay, so you're telling me I'm getting $20,000 for the paperback? I got $8,000 for this. It's 5 times as much. That's like $40,000, $20,000. You realize it's like 5 times your salary. I can quit the job. He goes, no, Stephen. We're getting $400,000. You're getting $200,000. He can't process it, which I related to because at one point with the Uber shares, they had done a stock split of like 4-1 or something. And so somebody, on my team is like, hey, here's the update on this, because they were not giving us too many updates. Everything was kind of close to the vest. And I was like, whoa, that's a lot of money. And they're like, yeah, it's actually 4 times that. And I was like, what? It was like, it was like a couple $1 million and then like, tens of millions of dollars. I was like, you're kidding. And they're like, no, we're not kidding. And I was like, oh, okay, there we go. All right. What do you guys got
real quick on Stephen King though? Quick shout out. His Gunslinger series, not as well known, but it's his magnum opus. It's so good. So good. Have you ever read it?
It's fiction. I got to get in there.
Oh, so good.
And then I had Working Backwards, by the way, which is the Amazon book, just because I'm trying to institute the writing culture inside of my companies.
Great. I got a real quick one. Sticking with the fiction and the sci-fi, building off the Martian, The Expanse. I've not watched the TV show, but the books are so good. I feel like not enough people know about these. And people don't know James S.A. Corey, the author, is a pen name. It's 2 people who write it together. And either both or at least one of them is George R.R. Martin's assistant.
What?
So literally, this is Game of Thrones in space. It is exactly that. It is so fantastic. And
I started watching The Expanse, but I think we fell asleep during it. I got to give it another
shot. The books
shot.
are so good. They're so good. And the last book just came out, wrapping up the whole series. 9 books. It's excellent.
All right. So I think we got all the books. Any more books?
Nope.
All right, let's go on to podcasts then. Any podcasts that are non-obvious that you guys have gotten into?
I'm trying to think. I don't know, David, did you have a favorite podcast this year?
I've got a few 2 video game podcasts, video game nostalgia history podcasts that I love. Actually 3. One OG that I've been listening for years, Wizard and the Bruiser, is kind of like a fun poppy take on nerd culture. Retrograde Amnesia is my new favorite. They go through old school RPGs, like PlayStation era RPGs, and they play them, and then they like talk about the experience, like beat by beat. They do like 50 episodes on a game, and then Resonant Arc is another one in the same vein. That's also great.
Mine, I think, is actually a late 2020, but I'm going to recommend a single episode of the Tim Ferriss podcast where he interviews Jerry Seinfeld. It starts slow, but by the end, it's maybe the best podcast episode I've ever listened to on Jerry, the creative process, building habits, sticking to habits.
Have you had Tim on,
a great comedian?
On Twist?
I had Tim famously on This Week in Startups, a live episode when I would do live episodes every month in San Francisco or every other month. And famously during that episode, because Tim and I have a personal relationship, and he talked a little bit about like his, depression or other issues or whatever, mental health issues. And then he talked about, for the first time live in the room, it kind of took everybody back, his suicidal ideation when he was in college. And he then wrote a blog post about that and talked on a show, and it became like a top search term. And then somebody who was listening to the show emailed us both that he was going to kill himself, listened to the episode, got help. And
wow.
Yeah. Wow. So pretty heavy stuff.
Wow.
But Tim and I are good friends, and I got a lot of respect for him. I added The Watch, which is a Ringer podcast where they talk about TV episodes, but in a long way. And they do every Succession episode night after Succession. So now my new habit is I'm about the debrief. So now I watch Succession, and then I listen to The Watch talk about Succession, and I'll listen to some of their other episodes as well. but they go deep. So you have to have watched the show or else you get spoilered out. And then I will watch, I'll add a streaming show to this. I will watch the Knicks game. And then after it, there's a live streaming show called Knicks Fan TV that uses this restream technology. And Knicks Fan TV is something that comes on after every Knicks game.
Amazing. Where's your loyalty between the Knicks and the Warriors?
Hey guys, I'm on a podcast.
Knicks and Warriors are playing. Who are you rooting for?
Did you guys hear that? I thought I clicked I clicked the mute button. I can hear my daughters just got home and they're running around outside my door.
That's great.
Pandemic era media is about authenticity, Jason.
I'm like, hey girls, I'm on a pod. So I'll watch the Knicks game, and then Knicks Fan TV comes on, and it's like a call-in radio show using this restream technology we use today, and it's just changed my Knicks viewing habit because I find the debrief is kind of like I'm in it for the debrief now. After Secession, I like to talk about Secession. After
totally,
All right, I think that's enough show. Anything else you guys got on the podcast, Ted?
People should subscribe to your show. I think if anyone's, I retweeted it. The acquired account has been streaming this the whole time.
Fantastic, yeah, and vice versa.
I can't say enough. Like I've been a long time Twist listener, but All In is just brain candy in every way. You light up all the different parts of the brain and keep going.
Yeah, it's it's really a 5-person team there. You got the 4 of us, and then producer Nick has done an amazing job. Just giving up every Friday night. So shout out to producer Nick, who has kept it nice.
I got one real quick holiday rec to end on. Is a question for you. We actually need your help. We need to give a very nice gift to a fellow podcaster, friend of the pod. And we hear that he likes really nice wine. We don't know what to do. I hear you might have a recommendation. We're thinking like really nice, like few $100s, super nice gift.
If we're thinking about the friends I have, a few $100s, I'm not going to do it.
Okay, so cheap in your league, but expensive in our league.
What's the cheapest bottle of wine you would bring over to like Sax's house for dinner and be like, this is okay?
Yeah, I mean, you know what he likes is Pappy Van Winkle. And I don't know what a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle.
That's like $3,500.
Is it $3,500?
Yeah.
Right, oops. I basically was on his plane. He had a Pappy Van Winkle, and I literally just took the bottle, and it was like 3/4 full. I was like, I'll just take this home with me. I didn't do that. That's just a joke. I make jokes like that sometimes just to tweak him. He thinks that he really does think I took the Pappy off his plate. He's like, no, that's a $5,000 reserve bottle. That's why I took it. And he doesn't know that I'm joking. And now he's talking to me like, is that bottle missing? They're like, yeah, we actually think one of the bottles is missing. I know his pilots are taking those bottles too, by the way.
Can I ask a question about Sax's plane real quick? Does he just have like an incredible liquor cabinet like stored on his plane, or do you bring it on for every flight?
All right. I don't want to speak out of turn. You're not supposed to talk about private aviation because it's like rule number 1.
Is that an out of bounds question?
Totally. You never talk about it. You never take pictures of it unless you're Phil Hellmuth, who has we call him, I nicknamed Phil Hellmuth the Duke of Discretion because if you watch, and I love Phil, so don't take this the wrong way, but we call him the Duke of Discretion because like literally he got to Miami yesterday and he walked through this giant J-Lo house and talked about the helipad and everything. And he just talks about PH Nice Life. So every time he's on a plane or I've been on a plane with Phil Hellmuth, he's like taking pictures out in front of the plane. And I'm like, oh God, like this is a high profile person, like the tail number. And like it's sometimes it's his friends in sports and it's like I wouldn't say Michael Jordan's plane, but it's a Michael Jordan level person, and you're like, Phil, no pictures. And he's like, no, it's not for Instagram. And then you go on his Instagram. Of course, it's there 2 days later or whatever. So
it's on a delay.
But I think
it's windowed content.
Nick is when you do take these, the meal and the wine would be somebody's assistant would have thought that through and probably curated that. So that's kind of one of the fun things about when you have a plane, or at least some people just get like the standard food. But I've been, it's just terrible, but serviceable. But what some people do is whatever city you're in, the flight attendants, I've seen this a number of times, the flight attendants will source whatever the best restaurant is in that town or whatever. And they'll say, hey, can I get a to-go for this flight? And so one time I was flying out of Boston and like, we literally had the best chicken parm, gnocchis and whatever from like some North Beach. And it was just like, that was Chamat's plan. I can say that. But anyway, Chamat sent this person to, like find the best Italian place, where this pounding chicken parm, whatever. And of course it's paired with something nice. So
amazing.
Anyway. Okay. All right. So it's been an amazing episode.
We can't let you go. Sub $1,000 bottle of wine.
I have to think it through. I'll get back to it.
Or send us your wine person.
Oh, you know what else? I don't really drink. I would actually say a dessert wine is not a bad call because they do cap out. So Chateau Yquem, is that how you pronounce it? Yquem or Yquem? Chateau Yquem. Somebody help me here if I'm pronouncing it correct. Chateau.
I'm learning about a new thing, so I don't know.
It's basically dessert wine is a whole category.
Okay.
And so
Chateau Yquem.
Yes. And so I would look at that Chateau Yquem.
Sauternes. Okay.
They take like the late grapes. They're very sweet. And you can get into one of these bottles, like the small ones. They're kind of like the half-size dessert wines that you might see at a fancy restaurant. They bring out and give you a small little bit of it. Tastes like honey and raisins and fruit. It's very dense and fortified. So it's kind of like a port, but it's a little bit lighter. And if you have a significant other, I would just buy yourself a half bottle of this and crack it open after dinner one night. And absolutely delicious. Like skip dessert and have this.
$275 to $750. So perfect.
Yeah, that's perfect. Because there are half bottles, which will be small. And then there's the full bottles. You probably want to go with the full bottle, and spend the $750 or $500.
Right. You don't want to look like you're cheaping out on it.
And what's very important about these, I'll just say is the years can have very different profiles. So just go on wine.com or one of those wine rating sites and just find out which is the good year to get, because that's how these wine people think. They know all the brands of wine. They're on the next level of knowing the vintages and which ones were great. So if you had a choice to get a half bottle at twice the price, but the right vintage, that would be the power move in a wine gift.
Make sure you get the right
vintage. Other thing I would pair with it is a Dandelion Chocolate, which is a chocolate company in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I do all my gifting from them, and I just made a small angel investment in the company, very privately. But they have chocolate bars that are all high percentage dark chocolate. We're talking $12 bars of chocolate that are artisanal, but that are kind of life changing because you break open one of those bars, after dinner, and just crack it open and everybody have a little piece. Boom. Just really delightful. All right. This has been an amazing episode of the Acquired FM podcast and This Week in Startups. You know what to do. Have a great holiday, everybody. It's just great to know you guys. We have to bro out. We have to are you guys going to Miami for Art Basel and pre-money?
We're not in this one, but
yet.
Yeah. Oh, that's what we should do. Why don't we do, this would be a great 2022 for us. Why don't we do this live? This Week in Startups, Acquired, crossover live.
100%.
Where are you guys based? Seattle or something?
I'm Seattle. He's San Francisco. So you're neighbors.
All right, so then you fly to us, and we'll do it in we'll do it in Redwood City or something. There's a nice theater there or something, or we could do it in the city if there's Chesapeake doesn't arrest me.
Spot.
And let's just do an intimate 100 to 200 people, sell the seats, break even on it, and then maybe have a little party afterwards. Post COVID or whatever.
That sounds amazing.
That is a great 2022 plan. All right, listen, this has been great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Anywhere for people to follow you at Gilbert? Pretty nice.
At Gilbert or at DJ Rosent or at Acquired FM, or just search Acquired in any podcast player.
Listen to Acquired. Watch us on YouTube. We're on YouTube now.
Oh, fantastic. Excellent.
Yeah. We got these nice professional video setups.
Yeah. You guys look great. Really good lighting and everything. Yeah. Did you guys go with the Sonys or would you go with your DSLRs?
Alpha 7Cs.
They're